Hello, my name is Ryan, and this is a client briefing that applies to me or any other designer. What it's focused on is explaining how to have a good relationship between a freelancer and the client. So this will kind of give you some things that will make the whole process a lot smoother. The first thing is the range of things that a designer must know. These include things like who your competitors are. This is really key because one of the things we need to know, are we dealing with a regional area? So is your business restricted to a city, for example? Is it national or is it even international? Because certain things like colors or graphics or ideas don't translate well internationally. Also, we want to know what feelings you wish to portray. So that way, when we come up with a design, what sort of design is it? When you look at this design for this particular PowerPoint, it's a very minimalistic, simple, clean style. That's not like some of the other styles that I've done before, so it conveys a different feeling to it. And the reason why we need to know about your competitors and the feelings you wish to portray is we need to know what is the thing that your business brings to the table. What is the advantage? Why, out of all the businesses out there, would a prospective client pick yours? And a good way to think of this is Microsoft's Bing service. Bing is a Google search duplicate. It does not bring any new features to the table. Now, I know they have some, ooh, we put up a picture, but they really don't bring anything new to the table that Google doesn't. And thus they have spent billions and lost billions advertising Bing and have not been able to get their search engine business up. And the reason why is they can't tell prospective search engine users, hey, what are you guys doing that Google isn't? All they can do is point to a bunch of Me Too's. Now, to pick on Google, think of Google Plus. It is the worst ranked social website out there, right? Pinterest is more highly ranked than it. So what's the difference between Pinterest and Google Plus? Well, Google Plus is a very obvious Facebook wannabe. Meanwhile, Pinterest is bringing something new to the social table. It's allowing people to pin pictures and to show what they're interested in. So because they're able to differentiate themselves from Facebook or Twitter or any other social media, they're able to define a niche market that they can tap into. So it's very important that any designer, me or otherwise, knows what are the advantages of your brand. It's also nice we know the history of your brand. What were the past marketing strategies that were used? How effective were they? So we need to know these things because we need to know where to go in the future, what worked, what didn't work. We need to know, of course, your fundamental beliefs. The unofficial motto of Google is "Don't be evil." And so a lot of times whenever people judge what Google does, they always throw that back in Google's face, right? Are you being evil? We also need audience research. There is a vast difference between how you design something when your primary intended audience is a group of young males versus if it's older professional women. A good example of that would be Spike TV. Spike TV has a niche market, men in the ages of 16 to 34. They know it. Anyone who's ever visited Spike knows it immediately who they are branding towards. Likewise, O is not geared towards men, right? It's geared towards professional and even non-professional women. So these two television stations are able to capitalize on their unique audience. And also we need to know, what are the variations of your audience? Is it a diverse mixture, or is it primarily professionals, or is it primarily young people? What sort of business is it? These sort of things will help any designer in any field know. We also know, what keywords do you want your audience to know? Are there certain values that you want to show up over and over again? Most important is, what is your primary product or service that you want to convey? A really good, dirty song, but very funny, is by a band known as Tripod, and they have a song called King Kong. And basically, the lyrics of the song, what it says is that they were watching King Kong, and they had to wait forever to see Kong, right? The movie says King Kong, so why isn't he in the movie at the beginning, right? You can listen to the whole song. It's very funny, but don't listen to it around kids. And what that song is getting to is a simple point. What is the primary product or service you're offering? So if we go to apple.com, there is absolutely no mystery whatsoever with what Apple is trying to sell me right now. Sure, Apple has a lot of products. It could be advertising any one of them, but it knows exactly what the moneymaker is. There's no question about it. In marketing, this is what's known as above the fold advertising. It comes from the newspaper days. So whenever you see a newspaper outside in the newspaper stands, the stuff that's above the fold, right, where they fold it over and put it in the front page, that is prime real estate. If people are not captivated by what's above the fold, they will not look at anything else you're doing. So this is a principle that I apply on my own website. So whenever I go to my website, the first thing we see above the fold is my presentation, and it starts off with a video resume. Okay, so why does it start with this video resume? Well, because this hopefully impresses you. If the design elements here do not impress you, there's not much else that I'm going to be able to pull out that is going to impress you. And then next up, a graphic resume, right? Why do you want to hire me? Well, here's some reasons why I think you should. Because I can improve your productivity and I can do a lot of different skill sets. Lastly, I give you my professional resume, which again should convince you I'm a designer and that I have good design skills even in something as sort of boring as a resume. And then next up, we have the contact me for hiring, right? Because if you want to hire me, I want to make it simple. I want you immediately to be able to do that. So these are the first things you get whenever you hit on my webpage. We don't want clutter and we don't want distraction. On another website I designed, I'll be using my examples because, of course, it's my video. And if I don't apply my own principles, then why should you? Here, the first thing you're hit with is, once again, a fancy video. But then it's, where are we located? Why? Because for this fight club, right, you can't do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo over the internet. You need to go somewhere. So for a lot of people, they just want to know, where is it and how do I get there? Well, right here. So you can try the lessons, and if the lessons work out for you, great. If not, well then, again, nothing else we're going to do is going to impress you. So those are the key features. What is the primary thing that you want customers to do? Make that front and center. Amazon's another great example. The Kindle is the first thing you hit. Why? Because that's what they want to sell you. Next, again, is what do your customers say about your service? That goes over what we've already covered. Get good feedback from your own customers. What do they say? What do they think is the most important thing you bring to the table? This sort of feedback is way better than anything your marketing department could come up with. Get to the monkey, just like the tripod song. Get to the point. And this also goes with avoiding happy talk. So when you go to a lot of web pages, they waste time. You hit their web page and you get something like, hi, welcome to my wonderful web page. I am a great person and I work at a great company, and my great company can do great things because we are great people. No one reads that. No one cares. So you need to make sure that you're getting to the message. Now this is bad design. And the point of this slide is you get what you pay for. So whenever you're selecting a freelancer or an employee, you generally get what you pay for. And there's a great story about this from a guy who sells authentic New York trash. Go hit your Google up and go check out this story, because I actually had a bet with someone and they were betting that I made the story up. I'm not making this story up. It's a real story. So there's a guy and he was selling authentic New York trash for $10. And when he sold it for $10, people thought of it as a gag gift. They thought, oh, he's clearly joking. And so they buy it and show their friends off, haha, and throw it away. Well, he started thinking, I'm putting a lot of effort into this for $10. I really should be getting paid more for this. So he started selling authentic New York trash for $40, and he figured that his business would disappear. And did it? No. In fact, he got more people who started buying it. And they started buying it and seeing it as art. The valuation of the price reflected in the work, right? What people pay for something is how they value it. And I value my time, and you should value your time. So it's very clear here that if someone's willing to work for $4 an hour, you can bet that the work they will give you is going to be something like what you're looking at on the screen here. Next are ways to fail. And I took this from this wonderful website called wowbranding.com. They have a lot of great blog articles and other stuff. And these are sort of 6 key things that happen and break down in a lot of different relationships, particularly with creative people. So the first one is the CEO or leadership team is not involved. And this is comes back to what's known as the story of the pig and the chicken. And the story of the pig and the chicken goes like this. A chicken and a pig are friends, and they're walking down the street one day. And the chicken says, hey, pig, we should start up a business. And the pig thinks about it, and he goes, okay. But what should we call the business? And the chicken thinks about it and he goes, ham and eggs. And the pig says, no way, that'll never work. And the chicken says, why? And the pig says, well, because you're involved, but I'm committed. And so what does that joke mean? Well, when you think about where ham comes from, it comes from the pig's rear, right? The pig is saying, in this business, I am on the line here, but you're just kind of involved. You can walk away and lose absolutely nothing. And so whenever the CEO or the leadership team is not involved in a project, there's no pig. No one is really on the line. And so the project tends to fail. Another one is there's no budget allocated for the project. Surprisingly, designers often get requests where people seem to think we want to work for free. No, we spent years learning our skills, and we're constantly refining them and updating them. Of course we need to be paid. And if you don't allocate a budget, it also says you're not serious about it. It's once again the chicken and the pig problem, right? No one's on the line here. No one is really seriously considering it. Another problem and a point of breakdown is no internal person to drive the rebranding. So someone on the inside has to be the pig, and someone has to be driving this. And of course, no one wants to be called the pig, but that's what it's actually called in Scrum and Agile architecture. But someone needs to be pushing this. Someone influential needs to be saying, we need to be rebranded, we need a new logo, we need a new design, we need a new website, because we're not meeting our metrics. Our goals are not being met. Another problem is no visual evidence of change. One thing I hate hearing as a designer is, I want you to change everything but make it look the same. It doesn't work, right? Customers, clients, even the people inside your own company need to know that there's a change going on, right? That things are going to change, that we're now improving, modernizing, and updating. If there's no visual evidence of change, then guess what? It's like the change never occurred. There wasn't even a point to it. So please don't tell me you want me to change everything but make it look the same. This will not just annoy me, but every single designer out there. Not having a rollout plan, well, that just goes along with the same thing. When you're changing things, there needs to be visible change. And lastly, not enforcing the company values. So again, we've talked a lot about what are the values of your company, what are the values of your brand, what are you bringing to the table that your competitors aren't. So if you're not enforcing these company values in your brand, it's not going to work. It's just a guaranteed recipe for disaster. Now, next up is a concept known as death of the author, which sounds very stark and dreary, sort of death of the salesman type, but it's not an Arthur Miller play. It's actually a concept that comes from the humanities, and it applies to film, plays, website design, any sort of creative field where you release something to the public. And what it means is that the way something is interpreted by you, the creator, or by you, the company, is not how the audience is going to interpret it. A great example of that is the book Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury thinks the book is about the rise of technology and how it destroys people. And he predicted a lot of things like flat screen televisions and mobile phones and all these other technologies around, but he himself is a Luddite. He doesn't fly in planes. He doesn't drive a car. He's very notoriously against technology. I don't even think he uses a typewriter. I think he still does everything by pencil and paper, just to give you an idea of how hardcore he is about this. And so when he wrote Fahrenheit 451, he thinks it's against technology, but everyone who reads the book, and if you take a class on it in college, they're going to tell you it's about anti-authoritarianism. And there was a student at Berkeley who brought this up when Ray Bradbury was a guest lecturer, and he stormed out, right? Well, guess what, Ray Bradbury? Unfortunately, I say when you release a work into the public, they interpret it, not you. So you have to be very mindful. You have to always maintain presence to understand that what you think about the product is not what your customers think about it. And you always need to maintain the customer's perspective. How will the customers view this product, not how will I view it? A great example on the positive side is Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs got the first iPhone, he put it in his pocket and pulled it out, put it in his pocket and pulled it out, and put it in his pocket and pulled it out over and over again. And then he called one of his head engineers in there. And he said, do you see this? And he showed him the phone. And the phone had scratches from the key marks. And he said, a customer is going to be putting this phone in and out of their pocket all day long. They can't have a screen that gets scratched up. Do a recall and rebuild it. And so days before the launch of the iPhone, they did a full recall and they redid every single screen because Steve Jobs was thinking, how does the customer use this item? What the engineer said was, hey, why don't they just get a case? Well, a case isn't always a viable option, right? That's how you want the customers to use it. That's not how the customers are going to use it. So you've always got to be very mindful of what your customers are doing, not yourself. So let's talk about that from a web design perspective. A lot of clients ask me to do things like splash screens. So as you see, I can do all kinds of great motion graphic stuff. And so like, ooh, can you make me a splash screen? I'm going to tell you, don't do it. Because I have seen some great splash screens in my day. Lots of great splash screens. Once. By the second time, okay, still kind of cool. By the third time, those things annoy me. And by the fifth or sixth time, I don't ever want to see them again. So splash screens tend to annoy customers because they violate the monkey principle talked about earlier. Get to the monkey. What's the point? Customers come to your website for a specific purpose. Make sure they can achieve that purpose as quickly and easily as possible. Likewise for videos and audio. Audio hasn't been as big a problem recently. Most people don't have the autoplay on their audio, but there is nothing more annoying than visiting a website which has cheesy music playing on it. Even if it's good music, it's still annoying. If you want to have audio on your website, make sure it's something that is clickable and that the audience is choosing to engage with, not forcing upon them. And it's the same thing with video. As cool as my videos might be the first or second time you watch them, by the third and fourth time, you're going to get annoyed with them. So don't autoplay them and force the audience to sit through them and suffer. Another thing is ease of navigation. You want to think about what's known in fancy terms as information architecture, but basically, how do you want people to navigate your website? And in particular, think about this if you know your business is going to grow over time. You really need to think about how it should be laid out. So you don't just try to front load everything on the home page, because then you end up with what's known as mystery meat programming, which is where people don't know where to click and they get all these options and they get really confused and they go, ah. And that leads to people doing what Google calls a bounce, which is where they hit a web page, they look around, they don't know what's going on, and they click the X button and get out of there. A great website for this is writemaps.com, which gives you a very quick, simple interface to create your own little mini navigation and see like how do you want things to be broken down. And a great violator of this is every education institution ever. So here we have a little graphic. And it's called things on the front page of a university website and things go to the site looking for, right? So the campus, the university, wants to show off their slideshows and their alumni and their press releases, but students don't care about any of that. They want to know the faculty phone numbers, application forms, the address, the calendar, campus phone number for police, parking information. And the reason why universities are notorious at failing at this is because no one goes to a university because of the website. That's not their primary function. So they get away with a lot of things that if your business is going to be driven by your website, which is most businesses nowadays, then you need to make sure that people find exactly what they're looking for and they don't get frustrated. Next, let's talk a little bit about SEO. SEO is a broad field, and I'm not going to be able to cover this in one video tutorial on everything you need to know about SEO. But here's the most important thing you need to know. SEO is not a one-time thing. You're never just done with your SEO. That's like saying, I'm pretty much done with ever advertising my business. I'm just going to sit back and just, enjoy the efforts. That never happens. You always have to market your business. You always have to be putting in new orders, and you always have to be looking for new clients. Because if you're not doing it, someone else is. So if you're not making sure that Google and Bing know who you are, someone else out there is doing it. And so what's the basic premise of SEO? The basic premise of it is this. The more it costs, the higher Google and Bing rank it. So what does it mean by cost? Well, there's basically a couple of things that Google uses to determine if your website is worth anything. The first thing is the URL up here of your website. What is your website called? So one thing that helps out a lot is making sure you have what are known as URL-friendly links. So in this case, in my title, it says about the freelancer. Why? Because it's about me, the freelancer. So if someone is searching up freelancer, I want them to know that I'm a freelancer and that I'm available for hire. So I want that to pop into the URL. Now the rest of this is just a test website that I'm working on. And then once I've got all the kinks worked out of it, it's going to be on a fully deployable website, which is going to be called brwebdesign.net. Why that name? Well, one, it's easy to remember, and two, it says exactly what I do. Again, you don't want mystery meat programming. You want people to know exactly what it is you're offering. And on the subject of navigation, I tend to have a lot of redundancy, which is an engineering term, but a lot of replicants of the same thing as far as my navigation goes. And I try to make it semantic and easy to notice. For example, you're on my About Me page and you'll see this differently colored from the other navigation icons. Why? Because I want you to know where you are. If that's not enough, I have a bar down there that shows you how to get back to the home page. Why? Again, you don't know how someone landed on your web page because a Google search result can take them anywhere. And so what you don't want is for someone to hit your web page and not know where they are and get frustrated. A frustrated user is a user who's gone. So everything I do, I make sure that it's above the fold if I want you to know it, and I make sure you know exactly where you are and exactly how to get back to where you were. And the same thing applies if you look at my archives. It tells you what it is, where you are, and how you got there. All right, so that's one thing that costs a lot of money. The SEO. First off is the name of the actual thing. So we see right here, my life is in the title. It is also in the URL itself, which is why Google is bolding it. And then once again, it finds itself in the description. And if I looked inside of the actual website, I would find my life over and over again. And in fact, it highlights it, right? Exactly where it finds it. So these are what are known as paying for it. These are things that Google says, if you call something my life, then you also can't call it my favorite butter and bread recipes. I don't know, whatever, my favorite recipes. So you can only call it at one time. You can only name your website one time. You can only name your title one time. So these are things that cost a lot. So because they only have a one-shot use, Google figures you rank it. You should rank it highly. Things that don't cost a lot are the description tag keywords. Google doesn't use them at all, neither does Bing. The only thing that does use them are internal search engines, and even they don't use them very much. The only off chance that they may get you some search engine results is for misspellings. So if a client misspells something, then it may give you a hit. That is about all you're going to get off of putting a lot of meta keywords in the description. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't help. But some SEO guys, that's what they say. Oh, we'll put all these special keywords in your description. It doesn't work. It's about your website URL, your title, your H1 tags, the A-links. A-links are prime real estate that a lot of people screw up. So basically, if you have a link and it says click here, Google figures if you're linking to something and what that looks like. This is an A-link. It's a different color. And Google figures that if I'm going to name something in this link, then I'm not going to name it something like, I'm not going to have a website I'm not going to have a link to a picture of my dog and then say this is a quick presentation. They figured that this must mean a lot. So again, it costs something. So they rank those very highly. And then lastly, they look to see if the keywords in the URL, in the title, in the description, if all those match what's in your body. And they figure that if all these things line up, then yes, indeed, you must be someone who cares about whatever it is you say you care about. The other thing is the semantic structure of your website in HTML5. So the more semantic your markup, the better Google and Bing can index it. These are things you need to think of right off the bat. What are you going to call your website? What's its URL? What's its title? All this stuff matters. The other things that matter are the stuff where you have to do an SEO campaign. Incoming links. The quality of linking websites. If you're getting links from websites that are notorious for spam, well then those links don't matter. Google doesn't rank them. The age of your website, unfortunately if this is a new website, you're going to be penalized. Google figures that older and more venerable sites are worth more than newer and non-venerable sites. The freshness of content, so the more often you're updating your website, the more Google recrawls it and ranks it higher because it says, oh, this is fresh content, this is what people want. People like fresh new content. Accessibility, can your website be accessed by people who have hearing or motor disabilities? If not, Google's going to penalize you because a lot of how a search engine works is exactly how a screen reader works. In fact, the software is very, very similar. And the reputation of your server. I use InMotionHosting.com because I found they have a very high quality server. But if you're getting one of the free websites, right, like from myscamdomain.com or whatever, then if there are pirated websites on there, if there are malware websites on there, then it's going to hurt your ranking in Google because it's going to say you're coming from a non-reputable source. And then the only way to know if you're meeting your SEO goals is to have a ROI strategy, return on your investment. If you don't have a metric for success, then what you have in Google Analytics, in Google Website Optimizer, in Bing Webmaster Tools, and all the fancy stuff in the world, all you have is a click counter. You need to have a way of measuring success. And that means, is a success a phoned in order, a consultation? Is it a response? Is it people walking into the door of your business? And so what you do is you set up a campaign and you look at what keywords are getting conversions. What keywords make people want to buy your products or come into your store? And so you may get 1,000 hits off something totally unrelated, but none of those people come into the store. And if that's the case, do not optimize your website based upon the things that are not converting. You need to have clear goals. And so if you can get anything out of this presentation, it's to have clear goals, to have a strategy, and to make sure that you're always moving in the direction of goal orientation. To make sure you're not just doing things that we call make me happies. And to talk briefly about that, make me happy is best exemplified by the changing that George Lucas did in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. There's nothing wrong with the original theatrical release, nothing at all. But George Lucas wasn't happy, and he forgot that when you make a movie, you're making it for an audience. So he added in a bunch of junk that audiences hated. The nicest thing you're ever going to hear anyone say about what George Lucas did to that movie is, I don't mind it. Not I liked it. No one has ever said that. They say, I don't mind it. Everyone else hates it. So you need to have that metric, right? It's not about making you happy. Remember, death of the author. It's about how your audience perceives the changes. Are they positive changes or are they negative changes? And that's what you need to focus on. So hopefully this video has been informative for you, and hopefully it will make working with any freelancer, whether it's me or someone else, a more positive experience for both you and for the freelancer. Thanks for watching.